Hello, welcome everyone to Miami MoCAAD's Creative Conversation. So my name is Corbin Graves. I am the Interactive Media Director for Miami MoCAAD, Museum of Contemporary Art of the African Diaspora, and welcome to our Afro-Latinx Creative Conversation series. Today is the first in the series. I would like to start off by giving you a little bit of information about Miami MoCAAD and about Miami-Dade County. Miami-Dade is a very special place. It is a center of an ever-growing arts ecosystem and is uniquely positioned at the crossroads of two continents. New and innovative Miami MoCAAD will continue to create networks, novel experiences, and contexts for identities and creative ways to experience the museum. Miami MoCAAD, Museum of Contemporary Art of the African Diaspora, will blend art and technology and cross boundaries to bring exciting, compelling, and memorable experiences to connect people and communities locally, nationally, and globally. Today's creative conversation is titled Aquí estamos, Here We Are, Definition of Terms and the Presence of Africans in the New World. I'd like to introduce today's presenter, Orlando Addison, award-winning author and convener of the first Miami Afro-Latino Heritage Excellence Summit, and Yvette Rodriguez, founder of Afro-Latino Professionals of Miami, as our moderator. A recorded version of this webinar will be available on Miami MoCAAD's YouTube channel and will be posted a few days after this creative conversation. There will be a Q&A portion of the creative conversation. We'd love to hear from you. Please send your questions in the Zoom chat or the Facebook Live chat. Our interns, Ashley Caleb and Christian Allen, will send them along to our Q&A moderator, Luz Estrella, also an intern. Thank you to those of you who are joining us this evening, and welcome to Miami MoCAAD's first creative conversation in our series focusing on the Afro-Latinx experience. Aquí estamos, here we are, definitions of terms and presence of Africans in the New World.
Hi, aquí estamos. So happy to be here with everyone. Thank you, Miami MoCAAD. And so happy to reconnect with you, Orlando. You know that we met back during your summit in 2018. And then again, when you put together that conference, you know, quickly to confront a situation where there was a theater company in Miami and they had a production who had a character performing in blackface, and you know, we cannot have that. So I appreciate that you put that conference together. And just a little bit of background on me, and hopefully you'll be speaking of this soon. Personally, as a little girl, I was in preschool and I was approached by, you know, a boy saying that his father told him that Black people are all bad and that he doesn't like Black people. Mind you, I was probably 3 or 4 years old. So that was like very impressionable for me. And that was the first time that I'm like, wow, you know, how is Black seen as negative, you know? So can you tell us a little bit about that, Orlando?
Oh, very well. Thank you, Yvette. It's a pleasure. I'm so thrilled to be a part of this program, of this event. And thanks to Miami MoCAAD for putting all this together and creating the platform and the opportunity for you and I and everyone who are basically is connected to this event can really together learn the process. So I'm excited to be with you, Yvette, and to reconnect after many years, particularly those events that you mentioned that we were able to put together and organize down in Miami. So glad to see you again. I'm glad to share this information.
Yes.
And, you know, and your story is I'm quite sure you're not alone in this, and I'm so sorry to hear, you know, that situation that happened with you when you were so young and in preschool, and you know, I know that a lot of people perhaps went through the same process of being discriminated because of the color of their skin or the texture of their hair, or you know, any resemblance of you know, African that they may have, and they were discriminated because of that. But your question is very interesting one, because you ask about how the word Black became so negative, and and has all these negative stereotypes and labels. Well, to understand this concept, which is a word that we use in our daily conversation, and even sometimes we even joke with it, call somebody black, kind of way, without understanding the background and what happened, what created this one word
Right.
to be so negative, to have all these negative stuff and negative labels to attach to it. What I would say is that the word black is a word that describes the social and economic condition of an ethnic group. And this is a definition that we can find easily, in online and with the dictionary and all of that. But in essence, I want to say is that that it's important to clarify that it is not the word black that offends. Since all Black women and men are aware of our Blackness, the repudiation lies in the negative stereotypes the term was associated in past centuries. So I recently watched, for example, on YouTube, one of Dr. Martin Luther King's speech, particularly on this subject. And he said in the speech that Black people don't have anything to be ashamed of. He said, and I quote, "Somebody told a lie one day," end of quote, which is completely true. And he went on to describe how the word Black was demonized, to refer to it as ugly and evil, low and degraded and sinister, he said. While the word white, he said, was always something pure, innocent, good, and spirit and integrity. And so you see the contrast here in terms of how the word Black was basically introduced later on in society to become this negative kind of word, while the word white was basically something the opposite, was something good. Even we have painters that they define white as perfect, and white is also associated with the divine. To go into the Christian Gospels, you have the author of the Gospels describe an event in which Jesus was transfigured, and the author of the Gospel that described that and was witness to that event, describe it Jesus, for example, clothing to be whiter than snow. So you have that concept of whiteness being pure and divine, which is completely opposite of the Blackness in itself. So all that has a history. All that started way back, as Dr. Martin Luther King explained. Somebody perhaps introduced this concept into society, and it became a part of the norm of society to look at Black as a way of into this negative thing. And we will look a little bit into some of the origin of the word Black, so that I hope everybody will be able to understand and look at it from a different point of view as well.
I know you had some slides, right? You had images, yeah.
Yes. We'll do those images in just a few minutes. But what I want to explain is the following: that calling a dark person Black during colonial and post-colonial period, that was an insult. It wasn't something to say was a kind word towards Africans and their descendants. No, you back then the word Black meant an insult. It was equivalent to slave. It was equivalent to inferior. It was equivalent to poverty. So when somebody called a Black person or an African or African descent Black back then, they were insulting the individual. So that was a shameful and painful situation for our brothers and sisters back then, for our ancestors who were labeled this way, because they knew when someone, a non-Black person, called them Black, they knew exactly what they meant by that, and they were not proud of the fact of the word, but they couldn't do anything about it.
Yeah, I can imagine.
That's that. No, we have the power, and I will explain a little bit in terms of how we do this. We have the power to change that, those labels, negative labels to, to something positive. Also, in the colonial period, the contradiction between slaves and Christianity has its base on an alleged character defect present as a hereditary feature in Blacks, such as, laziness, for example. Black people were labeled as lazy. I mean, come on. I mean, that's completely absurd. I mean, that they will call the Black people lazy after working all these years and centuries in the fields for nothing. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, and also they were labeled as criminals.
Everything negative. Everything negative.
Everything negative. They sexual, another form of immorality. They were labeled like that. I mean, Black people are immoral and sexually immoral. All these labels were given to us and to our ancestors back then. The other one, the low intellectual. I mean, come on. I mean, that's what Black.
Look at us today. Look at us.
Amen. Amen. All those negative labels were given to our ancestors to basically keep them, very, very low to the bottom of society. According to historian George Reed Andrews, these stereotypes were well known and widespread in colonial society. They provided a powerful ideological and cultural justification against enslaved Africans. So that's basically some of the historical aspect of how the word Black was associated and basically related to or described to the Africans and the African descent. In the colonies, Blacks were seen mainly as slaves. So anyone that would call an African or African descendant Black, they were basically telling them, you are only slaves. That's it. You don't have any other place in society. Your place is to be slave and to be, to the bottom of the social stratum there.
No.
The other thing also is that slavery was seen as a moral justification. Since African originated from a region identified primarily as infidels in the European imagination. Africans were considered impure blood, and I want to stress this out because this is important to understand. And I'll explain this in another series that we have in terms of how this became an issue in terms of declaring Africans with impure blood. This influenced the ordinances prohibiting, for example, marriages between Black people with European descendants. The ordinances were much rigorous than those issued between native, meaning the Black, the Indian, what we call, or the native of the land with whites. In other words, it was okay. It was not, legally, it wasn't. It was prohibited.
They weren't crazy about it. They weren't crazy about it. But
that's right. It wasn't crazy about it. They didn't enforce the law. Let's put it that way. The ordinances between, the whites marrying an indigenous person, but it was really strongly enforced when a white man wanted to marry a Black woman, or a white woman wanted to marry a black man back then. That's why you see that during the independence, the people who fought for independence in Latin America were the mestizos, so which they came from the European and the local people of the land. But you did not see, or they did not see any kind of relationship or marriage happening between the European and Blacks. In fact, the only relationship that the Africans had, particularly the women, was the violent way in terms of the slave owner, particularly the male, who would come and sexually abuse, rape these women And as a result of that, they will have, you know, their children, which
Right.
will be called mulattoes when we get to that later on. But that was basically the situation there. So and this is, unfortunately, you know, Yvette, many of these concepts still remain with us in our society, and people don't understand why. Yeah, you know, why, you know, we still push the issue between Black and white marriages, or a European and Black, or Black and white, or Black with other race, is because, again, as I would quote again Dr. Martin Luther King, somebody told a lie, you know, one day about this, and so it has been part of society for all these centuries. And we, you and I, as Afro-Latinos, Afro-Latinas, and those who are working in the community, we need to really dismantle all this, right, and change the concept and create a new way, a new language in which the word Black can be viewed completely different. Right. But let's look in terms of you know, the origin of this from a scientific point of view, and this happens during the Middle Ages, and intellects developed philosophical and social theories to justify, you know, African enslavement and inferiority. And one of these philosophers was the German Christoph Meinung. And I think if we can pull up the slide there for the first one, so we can see Christoph Meinung. Let's see if we have him on the screen there. It's going to come up in just a few
and obviously it's very important. Like, that's why like this kind of platform is so important, you know, as far as learning the history of where things originated, you know. And this is just one part, the first part, the kickoff of the series, which is going to be 4 parts. So pace yourself, Orlando, pace yourself, because there's a lot to go. You have a lot to go.
I know.
Today, you know, we have a short amount of time, but you have, you know,
yeah,
you have your wealth of information.
Well,
so yeah, you were mentioning the philosopher.
Yes, I'm excited about this. This is something great, because you know, I'm an educator too, and I love to teach this kind of information and this kind of history. But going back to the German philosopher, you know, Christoph Meinung, he divided the races into 2 groups. 2 groups. There you go. He divided this into two groups. The first group he considered and I quote, the beautiful white race. Okay, the beautiful white race. That's one of the groups. And the second he classified as, and I quote, the ugly Black race. So here you have, right, philosophers, intellectuals introducing into society these concepts, these labels, to justify slavery and also Black inferiority. They're using science to convince people that it's okay to enslave Black. It's okay to enslave African. It's okay to rape their women. You know what I mean? It's okay to mutilate, you know, the Black man and the Black boys, and you know, and abuse the young Black women. They introduce these philosophies as a way to justify that it's okay. You will be forgiven, you know, if you do anything against these individuals, because they are inferior to us. They are, you know, considered to be, you know, not beautiful. They're too ugly. They're too awful. So that's the ugliness of Blackness came from these philosophers that introduced these concepts into the mainstream society. So he again divided these two groups, one again into the beautiful whites and the other one into the horrible group. Right. And so the main characters of the races, according to him, is that they either beautiful or horrible. For which this individual concluded that the only, and get this, the only beautiful race is what? Is who? The white race, according to Meinung. Now, the horrible race were considered inferior and immoral and similar to animals. And again, from this concept, Africans are associated with monkeys. That's where it came from.
Exactly, exactly. And Orlando, because you know, Zoom has us on a time limit, but I want you, if you can, I know that, like I said, there's a 4-part series. We got a long way to go. If there's any way that you can describe the terms and this animal, using an animal to describe a term for, you know, people, you know, Black people.
In terms of the, well, like I said, Maynard described this, he was the one basically that introduced this concept of animals, of being ugly into society. And that's how Black people were basically associated with monkeys, but which is completely false. And we know that is not true. But again, because he viewed monkeys as horrible, as ugly, he associated Blacks with that. And that's how society basically, you know, took advantage of these pseudo-scientist introduction to society and abused it. The other one was and he would also is important. He's a Frenchman. His name is Joseph Arthur Cobenau. He basically designated African as a distinctly inferior race. He also contributed to that based on the type of food the community consumed. You see that? So he also was able to help create that concept of inferiority for the Black race.
But that goes to show how the person who's giving the supposedly education and telling a narrative, like you said, Martin Luther King, that, you know, something that was told was a lie. So, exactly. But they're controlling the whole narrative. So that's how ingrained, that's how it happened.
That's true. But you know, we have now leaders like yourself, you know, that many leaders in the Afro-Latino community that are really working hard to change the narrative, to change the concept. Every day. Yes, and to really turn it from negative to positive. And we are working hard every day, introducing, you know, some people, for example, there's a community in Colombia right now working hard to introduce legislation to really help the Black Colombian back there, so that they can be recognized and accepted, you know, as a community, as people. And so, and in many other places in Brazil, they're doing the same thing. In other countries in Latin America, they're working hard. So there are a lot of people who are really doing the best they can to change that pseudo scientific concept and change it into something positive. And I think that is important that we who are a generation of Black Latinos and Black Latinas, is important that we stand tall, you know, to raise our heads and look straight ahead. You know, we're asking our people to proclaim out loud with confidence the word that James Brown introduced in 1968 when he said, "Say it loud, I am Black and I'm proud."
Exactly.
We need to use that
every day. That's what we have to ingrain. It's ingrained in me. Or now let me ask you, what about the term mulatto or mulata? Can you tell us a little bit about that before, you know, so I don't want to leave that part out. It's very important.
Oh, sure. Yes, the terms mulatto or mulata is a very interesting one. And that is that it referred to people of mixed African and European ancestry. You know, although the term has become common among Hispanics and is most often accepted with a sense of pride, it was offensive and demeaning back then. And as you can see in the slide there, I'll explain a little bit in terms of what it means. The word mulatto comes from the word mule. It's come from mule, the breeding of a male donkey with a female horse. The Spanish Royal Academy states that the term mule was first found in 1472, in a 1472 documents referring to a livestock mule. It's the colony in the colonial period, for example, the donkey represented the African race because, again, it was inferior. It was considered inferior.
Oh, I see.
Okay, and that's one of the reasons why donkeys were related to African. Also because it had impure blood. Well, the female horse represented the European or the pure blood. So out of the donkey and which is impure, and the pure animal, which is the horse, you produce the mule right there. And mule were basically only used for work, for doing heavy duty jobs, heavy duty labor. But for nothing else. That's all they used for. And so the term mulatto then was it was basically offensive and demeaning. But there are people who are basically stating that we should stay away from using the language because of its historical meaning and all the negative stuff that came with it. But others are saying that that we should continue using the word, that people should be proud of who they are, because the word does no longer have the same meaning that it was introduced back in colonial and post-colonial period. So
I can understand that. I can understand that position, because for me personally, I'm Afro-Cuban, Cuban American, and those terms are used like it's normal. It is a term, So then, but things have changed dramatically. Even when you held your summit, the Afro-Latino, Heritage, Summit, etc. I have my organization, Afro-Latino Professionals. Can you tell us the term Afro-Latinx, for instance? Afro-Latino, Afro-Latinx. How did that more or less come about?
Yes. Well, the term Afro-Latino was basically introduced. I think it was created in 1979, I believe, or in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Was introduced into the United States during that time, at the end of the 70s and early 90s. And then, of course, you added the Afro-Latina, because you have to add the A of the end to the term, for the female term of that. And these university professor, which is, I think his name is Anthony Dicenzenio, and the other one is Pierre Michel Fontainer. Both of them were introduced the terms into the American language of Afro-Latino. And so, the reason why it was introduced, because people were in different countries addressing themselves, the Afro community addressing themselves as Afro-Cuban or Afro-Brazilian or Afro-Honduran or Panamanian, in that sense. And so they decided that, instead of using all these labels, let's use a word in which all these communities can come under an umbrella. And so
the diaspora,
right, can come under the umbrella. And so this way they created and introduced the word Afro-Latino. And then, of course, later, again, like I said, it was to include our sisters as well. Then they added the A as Afro-Latina. So that's how we came up with this word Afro-Latino and Afro-Latina in our vocabulary, and we use it daily today.
Orlando, and let me ask you, how do you, the terms Afro-Latino, and I think we briefly discussed it at some other point, that it's used more in like Afro-Puerto Ricans and Afro-Cubans, maybe, more the Caribbean. Do you feel that that's the case? Or it's, taken on like in Colombia maybe, or even in Honduras? Do you feel like that's the same?
I think it depends on the individual and it depends on the community. I think, of course, there is pride in naming your country of origin. Being Afro-Cuban, for example, is something that you're proud of, because you're not only an African descendant, but you also, you're also a Cuban. You were also born in Cuba, so you are proud of that dualistic situation there with you. or someone in Colombia, or someone in Brazil, or in Honduras as well. But again, it depends on the community in terms of how they want to identify. But I think usually the term Afro-Latino is used to embrace everybody in the region, you know, from all the way from Chile to the United States, Canada, and wherever, you know, Afro-Latinos live. And so that's basically, you know, how the term started and how people identify themselves.
Right. No, this is, let me tell you, this little gathering, this virtual gathering that we're having, it's very beautiful because it shows, you know, there has been, I mean, as Black people, there is growth constantly, but then these kind of platforms need to take place so that, you know, the rest that are maybe not aware or whatever, that they're aware that, yeah, you know, it's a beautiful, Black is beautiful. Whatever they were told, you know, it's you know, ingrained, but then also that labels, you know, whether it be Black, whether it be mulatto, whether it be whatever it is, that they were used to divide the people. You know, they were used to divide the people. So then it's like we're taking ownership, and we're trying to control the narrative. And this platform is amazing for it. And you know, you're killing it, Orlando, as always. we all have to do our part. We all have to do our part, you know. And it's like, for me, I'm welcome to do it, and I'm sure like your eyes are like sparkling. So I know that you enjoy, you know, telling us about it, and you know, we need people like you. We need people like you, definitely.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I mean, this is something that I have a passion about. I mean, you know, all my writings are basically, you know, trying to educate people through my writings, my poetry, and my books, so that people can get a message and see that, you know, that we are not the individuals, the community that we have been forced to be. You know, we are breaking away. We're breaking away from all those social labels that have been imposed on us, and creating a new we. You know, we are a new people, new generation. We are the new Black of Latinos that are proud and that are really, you know, creating something good and something positive, so that when someone say Black, you know, it's no longer going to have the labels, the negative labels that it had before. But when you say Black, you know, it will mean love. It will mean a community that really deserves to be respected and to have a rightful place in society. That's what we're creating. And having a platform like this is awesome. That's why I'm so glad that Miami MoCAAD was able to, you know, to provide us this opportunity to really and have a
give them their flowers. Give Miami MoCAAD their flowers. We're giving them their flowers right now. Orlando, let me ask you, this slide that's up right now, Afro-Latinx are not descendants of slaves. Can you elaborate on that?
Oh, yes. Oh, indeed. Let me also want to explain in terms of in a short part. Oh, sure. Yes. But in terms of the word Latinx, because you have that Latinx there. The word Latinx was introduced at the end of the 90s and the beginning of the 200s. That when it was a time in which society was changing, and we were trying to find ways to be inclusive. Afro-Latino and Afro-Latina didn't work for the LGBTQA community, and so they had to create something different to be inclusive. And so the X of the Latin basically represents a neutral. So it was it's a way to incorporate everybody else in it. Now going back to your question in terms of the Afro-Latinos, you know, are not descendants of slaves. It's important to understand this situation. We are not descendants of slaves, because the statement implies, by saying this, that we imply that the Black people continue to be slaves. In the colonial period, for example, those born from enslaved Africans belong to the enslaved owning family, meaning that an African woman, or an African woman slaves, her status was passed down to her child, so that the child was born from a slave. That means that the child will continue to be to be slave as well. So he or she
Right.
will have no freedom at all. That's what it is. So
Yeah.
when we use the term that we are descendants of African, we are trying to perpetuate that concept that we continue to be slaves, and that is not true. I think that what we should be saying or stating is that Black people are descendants of Africans subjected to slavery, which is completely different. Completely different. You know what I mean? You know?
Yeah.
Because
Black people were enslaved.
Correct. That's right. So our ancestors were brought here not because they were invited to come, not because they provided them with a ticket to get on the cruise to come over from Africa over here. No, they were chained. They came in humane conditions. Many of them died on the way to the Americans, and then they were sold like merchandise.
Yeah, material.
Right. So if we use that term that we are descendants of slaves, then we are basically perpetuating the notion that we continue to be slaves, and we refuse to really have that label, on us, because we are not slaves, and we are not descendants of slaves. We're descendants of the African community, the people who were forced to basically, exercise, I may say, this concept of slavery.
Say it out loud. I'm Black and I'm proud.
And I'm proud.
Period.
Yes,
No, sir. No, I appreciate this because, no longer, we should control the narrative. The narrative was that, but we have to control it. Like how you said, we are descendants of Africans, not of, or we were, the fact was that Blacks were enslaved, it wasn't a choice. It wasn't their fault. It wasn't, so then I agree with everything. So let's wrap it up. Not wrap it up, but let's move it along.
Sure.
We have the beautiful Marilyn Holyfield. We're going to be introducing her. Well, she will be introduced. And we want to have safe time for any questions and answers, of course, from the people that are joining us. So you guys let us know. I guess they will let us know the questions that they have in store. But in the meantime, Orlando, this is amazing. This is amazing. Your studies is amazing, and it needs to be done. It needs to be done.
Thank you. See, I'm so excited that I'm sweating actually here, because the topic is
you're glowing.
Part of my passion.
You're actually glowing, Orlando.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh my goodness. No, here in Miami, the humidity is insane. And it's like, oh my God, I'm greasy or whatever. And it's like, no, I'm going to stop using the word like greasy. I'm going to be like, no, I'm glowing because I have no other choice. I'm literally shiny. No, but it's a beautiful thing. It really is a beautiful thing.
Indeed. Yes,
so we should see, let's see Q&As. Let me see if I can. This Zoom thing is amazing.
So I do have one question here. Hi, everyone. My name is Lucis de Cruz. I'm an intern for Miami MoCAAD, and I am a senior at the University of Miami. Our first question, and I think can go to either panelist, says, how can non-Latinx African descendants uplift the Afro-Latinx community? And what ways can they be showing up for the community?
Do you mind, Orlando, if I chime in?
Sure, please go right ahead.
I think that it's just a constant, just a way of thinking in your conscious, like being conscious of if there's, let's say, an event like such as this one, to try to attend it, virtually. Obviously, we're in conditions that not everything can be in person, but kind of supporting in a way, sharing the information. Like today, if you got an invite or if you know about it, share it. Passing the word along, that's a big form of support. Social media helps a lot, it is what it is. But in that way, as far as communication, it really does help a lot. And, building a network, because that's the only way to strengthen, to build the community. The community is built. That's the thing, that the community is built. But, you got to work, you have your family, you know, you got your everyday, day-to-day things. And especially for me growing up, it was like, yeah, Afro-Latinos are all around me constantly. So that it wasn't like a big deal at all. So then, but then you have to make it a conscious effort to, if there's like a sort of an event, if somebody has a book or book reading or something like that, maybe the whole family doesn't have to buy the book, maybe just buy one person buy the book, but it really shows, you know, it means a lot to that one person or that event or the project. It helps it move along. And then you'll see that, you know, even Orlando had his summit, my whole Afro-Latino Professionals crew was out there, you know what I mean? And they needed a panelist or whatever it is. It's like they know too that they can count on, if I can't make it, if they can't make it, I can refer someone. But you know, it shows, it helps, in my opinion.
No, very good. I think I agree with you, about that. And I think it's supporting each other is so important, you know, and not basically, you know, not to brush it off. Any kind of event that is organized towards the Afro-Latinx community that we should support, and we should attend and be part of the community and uplift them in all different ways. I mean, we have social media right now, which is the big thing, you know, even though some of us suffered when one of them went down a couple of days ago. But we have social media that we can use to really uplift our brothers and sisters. One thing I think I need to say also, which is important here, and that is, please, you know, we're not competing with each other. This is not, we can't afford to compete with each other. You know, if we start competing with each other, we are going to destroy the community. The community is going to disintegrate. We need to stop looking at each other as competition and start looking at each other as basically as a member who is going to help and build, you know, the community, and support the community. So those are ways I think that we can support each other, and how the Afro-Latino community or the Afro-Latinx community can participate actively in all different events. And yes, and I agree with you, Yvette, about you know, supporting people with, you know, if they have an event coming up, support that. If they have a book coming up, like I do, you know, they support that as well, so that you can show you know, support to the community. Right.
No, it definitely helps to strengthen. It doesn't have to be about money. Money helps. Money helps, but sharing the information and referring, and hey, I know this person that could do this, those things go a long way. Definitely.
They do. Definitely. Agree with that.
Another question would be, what books would you recommend to those of us that would want to learn more about Africans and the Afro-Latino experience in Latin America?
Orlando.
You want me to go? Yes. You know, for me personally, the book that really helped open my eyes, and I learned so much about it that I constantly quote the author, and that is George Reed Anderson. I have his book right here with me, and it's called, I don't know if you can see it well. It's called the Afro-Latin America 1800 to 2000. This book, it's such a wonderful historical material in there that it's amazing to really learn a lot of the things that I did not know. And I'm so appreciative that Professor George Anderson was able to include even about, you know, my own country and some history in there. Cuba also is in there. The history of some of the history of the Black Cubans in there, and Colombians, and Ecuador, and South America, Brazil, and many parts of Central America as well. Even Argentina, believe it or not, Argentina has been, denying the existence of you know, Africans in their communities. So so that's one of the books that I would recommend. There are many other books also that people can read. The Enslaved History, I think it's called, in Puerto Rico. I can't remember the author there of that book. I read it a couple of years ago too. So yeah, there's so many materials out there now that you can just go on the website and search, and you will be able to get them. Many years ago, we didn't have this. We didn't have the resources that we have today. So I would say, take advantage of these resources. Learn about our history and from people who know their stuff, not from people who just going to invent or perpetuate this centric European notion of Blackness being inferior, but the one that will basically tell you the truth about it. And in upcoming sessions, we'll talk a little bit more about that. We're going to go deep into that to talk a little bit more about these concepts of African presence and how Africans really changed a lot of the historic narrative that are not included in some of the textbooks, but now intellects are really, bringing them to life.
I'm excited for the series.
Another audience member asked, how has the Afro-Latinx culture and scene changed in Miami?
Oh, maybe Yvette, can you? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that there's a big community, there's a lot of Afro-Latinos in Miami. And like everybody, like I mentioned before, everybody has their kids, everybody has their husband, their wives, they're working every day. But at this point, I think that, horrible things, especially during 2020, let's say, going, just from last year, horrible things took place, and racial things took place, horrible. But that also said, okay, we have to look within ourselves and we have to strengthen our community. And it is, a lot of people are not crazy about the term Afro-Latino, Afro-Latinx, they're not crazy about it. And, that's fine. I'm not here to be like, okay, this is what it is. That's consider another label, you know what I mean? In my opinion, you have to, if not, the same thing is going to be happening. Like somebody else is going to be controlling the narrative. We have to mention Black somewhere. We have to mention it, because if not, it will not get mentioned. In other words, I feel that the community, you can see it. You can go to Instagram and you'll see, like, Google Afro-Latino. I will come up, Orlando will come up, a whole bunch of people will come up. There's a book club. There's several things in Miami, especially, that are geared towards, celebrating Afro-Latino artists. MoCAAD today, we're celebrating, this is an arts organization program. There's many that are in South Florida, especially, that it's coming, it's being mentioned more. It's being mentioned more. I think it's just something very organic. And a lot of people say that, and it's the truth, that it's kind of trending at the moment. Afro-Latinos are, trending, super trending. Afro-Cubans, I'm Afro-Cuban, we're always trending, but, not to toot our own horn. But the truth is that it's, we've always been existing and living in communities. And you'll see, it's coming into light more. You'll see it more often. The styles, the hair, the music that was being played today in the introduction, that's amazing. These are like not new artists. These are very talented artists, but I mean, Afro-Latino, all of them, and they are, killing it, really. Like they're really, really killing that. So no, you'll see it's happening. It's been happening, but it's taking a form that is pretty spectacular, in my opinion.
Someone had asked from the Facebook, during the last sentence, the Garifuna people were directed by community leaders not to mark Latino for ethnicity. Instead, we were to write in Garifuna. This made me question which is the right way to identify as, which is correct, Afro-Latino or Garifuna?
Wow, that's a very interesting question. Again, by describing Garifuna, they're describing the ethnicity of the group, and those of you who do not know some of the history of the Garifunas, they basically continue to remain, to keep their culture, the language, and tradition that is very unique. And there's a unique group of people that live in the northern part of Honduras and in Guatemala, and also part of Nicaragua as well. They came from the island of St. Vincent, and they have a very rich cultural community. Again, they even have, they translated or they produced, a dictionary for their own language. And they have books that really enriched their community, the language, the food, and all that, their dance. So that will be, I believe, the community responsibility to make that decision in terms of how they want to identify themselves, either as Afro-Latino or Garifuna. I think that both make sense, but again, I leave it to the community to basically make that choice and see how they want us to address them, either as Afro-Latino or Garifunas as well.
And one more question before I turn it over to Corbin to introduce Ms. Hollyfield. Someone asks, how does politics influence the Afro-Latinx experience here in the US?
You want to take that?
How politics influence? There are people who are involved in politics right now, and a lot of Afro-Latinos are, you've seen Afro-Latinos running for different positions in different states. That shows that, the doors are opening for Afro-Latinos to participate in politics, not only in terms of the national politics, the federal politics, but also the local politics. You see a lot of, well, not a lot, but a couple of Afro-Latinos who are running for city council or, the educational board or something to that effect, that are participating more openly, which you did not see before. Many years ago, you did not see Afro-Latino presence in politics, but now you see that's happening. There are groups, advocacy groups in Washington right now working to protect and defend the rights of Afro-Latinos and Afro-Latinas, or Afro-Latinx in this case. So you do have people involved in politics. Now, how that's going to shape the community, I really don't know, because I'm not a politician, and I'm not deeply involved in politics, so I can't really answer 100% to that. So I don't know exactly how it's going to shape, but I do know that there are people who are involved in those areas that are doing fantastic, wonderful work and wonderful job, not only in promoting the Afro-Latino community, but also building spaces and creating space, not only for them, but also for future generations to be able to participate in local and federal and national politics.
Right. I want to add really quick that as far as my organization, Afro-Latino Professionals, that the group was created so that it can be almost like a directory of Afro-Latino people, in South Florida or whatever. But because I noticed that it was like, there'll be an event speaking about Afro-Latinos or even religion or whatever it is, and there wouldn't be not one Afro-Latino on the panel, or, somebody speaking on, on behalf, education is very important, whatever. But it's like, shouldn't they be there? And then, like, many a times they would be like, we don't know where to find them, but we don't know, a confusion. And it's like, we have to build some kind of place that they can Google Afro-Latino and then we'll pop up. And then from there, so that helps also as far as politics. I feel that, how they do their campaign runs, they go and visit different neighborhoods or whatever it is, or visit different groups or organizations. It's like, yeah, they're going to have to, with other little stops, they got to stop here too. They got to stop at the Afro-Latino Professionals group and speak to us and hear what we have to say, or, their constituents. So that's, I think it's a platform too. They're going to go everywhere else. they got to stop here too, you know? So then that's also a reason, you know, to continue the community. If you can't attend the meeting, you know, give a like on Facebook or whatever it is, and then share it or whatever it is, but it has to be present. It has to be in existence. Because if not, they're just gonna look over it. They think that you know, that Afro-Latinos are not relevant, that they don't vote, that they are not interested in anything like that, which that's the opposite of everything. But, you know, we have to have like a face to be like, hey, we're here. When you're looking at the different organizations or whatever to attend to, you got to stop over here first.
Exactly.
So, and you know, this platform to Miami MoCAAD is amazing. I hope that everybody follows Miami MoCAAD on Instagram and on Facebook. Amazing things are happening.
Indeed. And you know, one thing I also, because I think in terms of politics, in my novel El Actor y la Sombra, The Actor and the Shadow, which is in Spanish, there is some concept of politics in there as a way to defend the Afro-Latino community, and basically, particularly with the acting career in where you don't see, and one of the concept here in the novel is that it's trying to change the what do you call it, the entertainment business, particularly the telenovelas, to allow it, to invite it to be more diverse, not only in terms of racial diversity, but also, you know, gender diversity too. And so there is politics in this novel particularly about that. Which you know, definitely encourage people to do so.
Where can we find this? Where can you find your book?
It's on Amazon. You can go on Amazon and you know, or any of the bookstore in your neighborhood. You can go, or you can download you know, the electronic version of it as well. So I hope you enjoy it, and
yeah, for sure, for
the
sure.
way that I enjoy writing it.
For sure. Awesome, Orlando. You know what? You really did amazing. I hope I did amazing with you.
You did. Yes, you did great.
Congrats to us. And yeah, let's bring in the MoCAAD team. The MoCAAD team has been doing amazing. Let them, you know, give it back to the MoCAAD team.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Thank you. Thank you, Yvette, and thank you, Orlando. What a great conversation, a lot of really good information, and I personally learned a lot, and I hope that all of our followers or viewers learned a lot as well. So now we're going to move on to the next portion of the evening. I'm going to introduce Marilyn Hollyfield, and she's going to give us our closing remarks. So before she speaks, I want to tell you a little bit about her. Marilyn is a partner at Holland & Knight LLP, an international law firm that traces its history to the 1890s. She obtained her Bachelor's of Arts in Economics and with a concentration in Black Studies from Swarthmore College, Juris Doctorate from Harvard University, Honorary Doctorate of Human Letters from Barry University. She joined Holland & Knight in 1981 and became partner in the firm in 1986, the first Black woman partner at a major law firm in Florida. And while growing up, she outreach by Florida A&M University supported her involvement in the arts. Her continuing involvement includes her collection of artworks by artists of the African Diaspora, her work with as co-founder with Miami MoCAAD, Museum of Contemporary Art of the African Diaspora, as well as working to create a space for artists and art lovers of the African Diaspora to connect, learn, and grow. Now I will hand over the floor to Marilyn Hollyfield for closing remarks. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Wow. Orlando and Yvette, you were amazing. And Corbin, you were amazing. And our team of interns, what can I say, amazing too. Thanks to everyone for joining us this evening. And let's give a lot of thumbs up to Orlando and Yvette. This conversation covered how we have come from being Black as a negative, as an insult, to being proud. I'm Black and I'm proud. We have come from being separated by labels to understanding the origins of those labels. We have come to reach new levels of understanding about the origins of labels, about how we can come together. And that understanding provides opportunities for labels that separate to be eliminated as we take steps to control our narrative. We hope you enjoyed this program tonight. We have 3 more coming up in this series. Mark your calendar for October 21st, November 4th, November 28th. We will be sending out more information about the upcoming events. You will want to hear what the next series of conversations entail, because just like today, I'm sure everyone learned at least one new fact, and everyone could appreciate at least one new perspective on information from the past that informs our present. So again, before we close for the evening, I'd just like to say thanks to each and every one of you who came to this program, and thanks again to the amazing Orlando and the amazing Yvette and our amazing team of interns. Our interns who did all the things behind the scene. Luz Estrella Cruz, who moderated the Q&A, Ashley Caleb, Christian Allen, and Charlie Farrell. Our interns make Miami MoCAAD rock. So without further ado, good evening and thanks.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having me.